Hi everyone, this is Unit 1, Segment 3. This is the last segment for Unit 1. It's characteristics of living things. And we're going to be doing a lot of activities in class. Please pay careful attention to what we do in class because we're going to be hitting on things that may not be mentioned in the notes. So it's going to be really important to keep the practice materials, study the practice materials that we do in class as well. So, homeostasis, I need you to say it. Homeostasis. This is the process that your living things have of maintaining an internal balance. What does that mean? Have you ever wondered why you sweat or why you shiver? That is your body's response to a change on the internal balance, and it's trying to balance it back out. For example, when working out, you are heating up, you're inside, and your body needs to respond to that heating because it needs to maintain a 98.5 degree temperature. So it tries to maintain that 98.5 degree temperature by sweating. Because you're working out, you're heating that up, and it starts to sweat. The sweat produces the water on the surface of your skin. Evaporation, when that sweat evaporates, it takes the heat with it. Sweating is actually a cooling mechanism. Shivering is the opposite. Shivering is going to give your make your temperature, your temperature rise. So in response to being cold, your body shivers, makes you shiver. It's really, really awesome when you think about all the different things that your body does to maintain homeostasis. Think of dogs. Have you ever wondered why they pant? They don't sweat, so they have to get rid of water through their mouths, and by getting rid of the water takes the heat with it. So they pant, their tongue's hanging out, and they're trying to just maintain homeostasis. There's tons of other examples, getting goosebumps. I mean, there's all kinds of other examples on that. Homeostasis, remember, is that trying to keep an equilibrium. So we can look at short-term examples, which would be your sweating and your shivering. So this would be like minutes in time to hours to, I would say, within a day. So short term is really short term. Minutes, hours, days. That's it. Other examples of short term would be like plants moving their leaves within a day's time to face the sun. You might not even know that ever happened, but it does, especially with specific plant species. Other things would be like, short term would be like, let's say you're exercising, your heart rate, the heartbeat, your heart has to pump faster to get the amount of oxygen to your cells because your cells are working out. Your cells are actually getting maxed out. So your heart rate increases. That's why that short-term equilibrium is part of homeostasis. We can also come up with long-term equilibrium examples. This would be, the example in your notes would be like tree roots actually growing deeper through the ground toward the water source. They actually grow toward, that's pretty substantial long-term trying to access the water. Other examples would include like if you're working out and you're getting in shape and you're doing it over a long time frame, you actually build more capillaries in your muscles, in your larger muscle groups, to allow for the delivery of the oxygen and the waste and the CO2 waste to get delivered out in and out of your lungs. Can you believe that? So that building of the capillary beds is a long-term example. Also, if you are a runner, you can actually increase your lung capacity over an amount of time. So you can take in more oxygen easily. If you're not a runner, you will have to develop that over time. So it's like your body's way of adjusting to what you're doing to it, but it's long term. So for example, you can work out like for years and then miss 3 days of workout. You're not going to be out of shape. Your body has already acclimated, adjusted to that long-term impact that you have on it. Stimulus response is another characteristic of life. That means the stimulus is going to be something in the environment that's doing something, and the response is what comes about from that stimulus. So pulling your way from a hot pulling your hand away from a hot stove. That's a stimulus would be the hot stove. Your response is you pulling away. And then blinking, that is a stimulus response. Somebody fakes like they're going to hit you, you're going to blink, you're going to flinch, any of that stuff would be stimulus response. Plants, there's flowers that, obviously flowers produce the pollen, but there are flowers that will actually clamp around. It has a trigger mechanism. It will clamp around a bird's beak or an insect's, the little tube that they feed from. It will clamp around it, making sure that the pollen sticks to these things. So it's a stimulus response. There's so many different examples out in the wild. Think about some that might come to your mind. There is a whole list, and we're going to be practicing with this, but there's a whole list of characteristics of living things. All living things are made up of cells. Okay. All living things do respond to stimuli. All living things have that internal balance called homeostasis, and the body responds to changes in its environment or what it's doing to maintain that stability and homeostasis. Everything alive has a metabolism. I know we often think of our own metabolism as, yeah, she has a high metabolism, meaning she doesn't gain weight in the form of fat. That's what a lot of people associate with metabolism. But metabolism, guys, is your cells working. So it's your cellular process taking in the sugars, the carbohydrates, the starches, taking all that material in and breaking it down and allowing it to be able to function as a cell. All living things grow and develop as they grow. All living things reproduce. Some of them just break apart, like bacteria divide, and that's how they reproduce. Others are, so there's asexual reproduction, and then there's sexual reproduction where there's the male and the female and the sex cells that go with that. Everything alive goes through evolution, and we'll talk about that in its own segment, but that is simply change over time. So thinking natural selection over the course of many generations becomes, you can actually see the evolution over time. And of course, everything alive has the structure built into their DNA. So your DNA is your code for everything alive. Everything alive has it. So mosquitoes, bacteria, plants, birds, reptiles. I mean, everything has cells, and in those cells is a nucleus that contains the DNA. When you are a developing fetus in the womb, your cells are dividing and making your form very, very quickly. And in that time, they become very specialized in their function. So they start out as stem cells, and then they begin to hone in on the specific DNA codes for that particular cell and that particular job. So for example, what start out as stem cells can become eventually a brain cell, which is a nerve cell, or it can become a liver cell, or a muscle cell, or a skin cell, or any of the cells that are in your body, and each of those have a special job. They make specific proteins for that job. You are also going to need to know the levels of organization in this unit. So starting with the smallest, we have atoms. You learn that in chemistry. So all of the atoms that make up the periodic table differ in their subatomic particles. But when you look at the atom, atoms come together to form molecules, okay? Molecules form organelles, and the organelles with the E-L-L-E on the end, those are not organs. Those are little organelles that make up the cell, and you guys are going to learn about what every single organelle that's in the cell, okay? Organelles make up the cell. The cells together make up tissues, okay? So your body has lots of tissues. Tissues work together to form organs, okay? Organs work together to form organ systems. For example, the digestive system includes your stomach, which is an organ. It includes your esophagus. It includes your intestines, your mouth. I mean, all of those are organs, and they work together to form an organ system. all of your systems, so your digestive, your respiratory system, your circulatory system, all the systems that function in your body make up an organism, okay? And that's one living thing is an organism. A group of the same living things is called a population. So, for example, if we're looking at a forest, there is a population of squirrel. There is a population of deer. There is a population of raccoons. There's a population of hawks. So population is going to be the same type of organism living together in the same area. Community, if you're looking at a forest community, it's going to be everything alive in that community. Okay? Community is everything alive in that ecosystem. So it's going to include the trees, the insects, the birds, the mammals, the amphibians, the reptiles. Everything is part of the forest community, for example. And then ecosystem is a very, very broad term for a general area, all the communities, and living and non-living, that's part of that area. And the biosphere is the earth as a whole. Everything alive that belongs here on earth is part of the biosphere. So we get very large, very general as we move down this list. You will have to know them. I'm going to stop at microscopes. I am not sure if we will be learning them, so don't worry about writing them down. If we are going to include this in this unit, then I will have a separate set of notes for you guys, or a sheet that you can study from. So you are done. Unit 1 done.